And God bless you wherever you are, whatever you're doing. May His blessings be upon what you're doing and how you're feeling and what you're envisioning for your life. Um, and that gets me right into what I want to talk about today. We're getting close to the Christmas Day. We're in the Christmas season, right? It may not feel like it unless you're an online shopper. May not feel like it, but we're there, and yet I'm spending a lot of my time in John, the last part of the Gospel of John, and so I'm thinking about the resurrection and so many things, and so and I may have said this already, but we will get John finished and Jesus raised from the dead, and then in a couple of weeks I'll be talking about the birth of Jesus, the coming of Jesus. So I'm excited about that, but I want to say something today that I think is practical. I mean, it's a huge topic, but it's a practical topic at the same time, and hopefully it'll help your life. Just a few minutes here. Um, what God does in the darkness always amazes me. If you've heard me for a little while, I've probably already said this, that I'm consumed with the big metaphors of Scripture. Darkness is one of those big, huge metaphors of Scripture. Um, uh, a guy named Terence Fredheim years ago, who wrote a book on commentary on the Book of Exodus, kind of got me into that, and um, so anyway, that's who I am. But what God does in the darkness is just an amazing thing. Um, and I think about the first day of the week of creation, darkness. Remember the story? And out of that darkness comes this beautiful story of creation, of the all that God has done and is going to do, comes out of that darkness. On the first day of the week, it says in John chapter 20, in verse 1, and so you hear the echoes of the creation story there. On the first day, Mary Magdalene comes to the tomb, and John goes out of his way actually to tell us these details, that it was early in the morning and while it was still dark. Um, she doesn't come there expecting anything except to find Jesus' body and to anoint it. We don't know that from John, but from the other uh, Gospels, we know that detail. It's a hopeless situation that she comes to face. She's going to find Jesus' body. And of course, she finds there the empty tomb. Someone had rolled away the stone. Um, and so early in the morning, and John adds one more detail, and he says, while it was still dark. And the gospel writers are very, very keen about bringing these metaphors, and darkness is one of those, into the stories, to let us know that this is very related to how God in the beginning, we didn't know what He was going to do. He knew what He was going to do. We didn't know how good it was going to be. He did. Everything's dark, and out of that comes the beauty of creation, the purpose and intent of life in the world, and everything that we know about the creation. In this moment, uh, we know that this is connected to the cross of Jesus, because at the cross of Jesus, you remember what happened from the sixth hour to the ninth hour, darkness fell over the land. God's Son hangs on the cross, accomplishing the work that God had given him to do. A new creation work is being done, and it's dark. And Jesus is accomplishing God's will. And and so and then we get to the resurrection. So we're not surprised that the culmination of the gospel, the death and the burial, and then the resurrection of Jesus, that there's darkness. God has a way of doing His greatest things in the darkness. And that's what I want to say today, is that all of us, we have our darknesses. We have our places where we can't see. You know, and we don't see very well in the dark. Let's just say that. We don't see very well in the dark, and whatever that is. Um, Recently, maybe the loss of a loved one, which is always hard around the holidays, or um, whatever it is, it's financial struggles during COVID, um, these COVID days, and the challenges to your business. Um, it could be it could be just other personal things that are happening, and we don't see well in the darkness, but God does. And faith throughout Scripture is our lens. It's our way. It's the apparatus we use to be able to see and trust in the darkness, even though we don't know what's going on. God knows, but we often don't know, and we trust through the apparatus of faith that whatever's happening in our darkness, that God can bring good things out of that. God so often does his greatest work in Scripture. All of his work is good and all of it's great, but he does so often his greatest work in what we would view as a negative thing, darkness, where we don't do well, we don't see well, but God sees well. And out of that darkness exploded that morning the Son of God to bring new life and new creation into our world. And I hope as we enter into this season of life and joy and peace and all kinds of possibilities, that the resurrection story early in the morning, while it's still dark, will remind us that God is working in our darkness and will bring it to light. And it'll be good. It'll be good. God bless you, and I'll see you on Thursday.